Trump is embarrassing America. Senators and the people of the US are against Trump. Protesters ruined the vacation in Venice, accusing him of working for Russia. And Lindsey Graham says that the Ukrainians fought like tigers. But despite 9 visits to Ukraine and understanding the consequences of Russian aggression, Trump is proud. You can watch this and more right now.
After the talks between Ukrainian President Zelensky and US President Trump, the leader of the Democrats in the US House of Representatives, Hakeem Jeffries, criticized the American leader, stating that he is embarrassing the US. President Trump and his administration continue to embarrass America on the world stage. Today's meeting at the White House with the president of Ukraine was terrible and will only further embolden Vladimir Putin, the brutal dictator. The United States should not reward Russian aggression and continue to appease Putin. Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader in the U.S. House of Representatives. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham called the meeting at the White House with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky a complete and absolute disaster, and he stated that he has never been prouder of President Donald Trump.
Completing the battle was the star.
I think it's a complete and utter disaster. I've been to Ukraine 8 or 9 times since the war started. I understand the consequences of Putin's actions against Ukraine. I appreciate what the Ukrainians did. They fought like tigers. In the end, I was hoping that this deal on minerals, which could radically change the relationship, would go through successfully. I spoke with Zelensky this morning. Don't fall for the provocation. President Trump was in a very good mood last night. I was asked if I'm ashamed of Trump. I have never been prouder of the president. I was also very proud of JD Vance for standing up for our country. Some Republicans have also stood by the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian president in their statements. In particular, Republican Congressman Don Bacon wrote the following: "A bad day for America's foreign policy. Ukraine wants independence, free markets, and the rule of law. She wants to be part of the West. Russia hates us and our Western values. We must make it clear that we stand for freedom." Don Bacon, a U.S. congressman on social media X. Republican Congresswoman Victoria Spartz, who has Ukrainian roots and refused to vote in support of the aid bill for Kyiv last year, while spreading unfounded accusations against the Ukrainian government, accused the president of Ukraine of failing to protect the country. At the same time, Democratic Senator Jeanne Shaheen released her comment through the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. She is a high-ranking member of this group.
Today's outrageous performance by the U.S. President and Vice President was disgraceful and downright un-American. Once again, they sided with the murderer, the bandit Putin, instead of our democratic ally Ukraine. I support Zelensky and Ukraine's noble struggle for freedom and democracy. From the statement of the senators of the Foreign Relations Committee.
Meanwhile, U.S. Vice President JD Vance encountered a crowd of protesters supporting Ukraine during a family trip to a ski resort in Vermont. The protest forced Vance and his family to move to a secure location, Fox News reports. Upon arrival, they were greeted by protesters with pro-Ukrainian and anti-Vance signs accusing him of having sympathies for Russia. Some of the banners read, "Vance is a traitor. Ski in Russia." Mark Safonov, Mikhail Komodovsky, for the Freedom Channel.
The decree, Tabant from Metz, shocked everyone. Germany and France are ready to use nuclear deterrent forces, nuclear fighters in Germany, the creation of European armed forces, as well as achieving peace in Ukraine through strength and establishing NATO in Ukraine. What the European leaders agreed on, watch in this program.
Strengthen our own army and also start negotiations with the United Kingdom and France to expand their nuclear support to other European countries. The candidate for the position of Chancellor of Germany, Friedrich Merz, proposed, he believes that today Germany should not rely entirely on the American military's nuclear umbrella for protection.
I really welcome the fact that the United Kingdom is once again seeking to get closer to Europe, to the European Union. I still hope that we can convince the Americans that it is in our mutual interest to continue having good transatlantic relations. I still hope that we can manage to keep them.
The Telegraph reports that France is ready to use its nuclear deterrent forces to help protect Europe. Nuclear-armed fighters could be deployed to Germany. This option began to be considered against the backdrop of the U.S. statements about withdrawing its troops from the continent. Let's remember that U.S. Vice President JD Vance criticized the state of democracy in European Union countries at the Munich Security Conference on February 14th and made it clear that Europe will no longer rely on the unconditional support of the U.S. In turn, the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, during the press conference, Ukraine In the year 2025, he once again stated the need to create unified European armed forces. According to Zelensky, the continent must be self-sufficient in the face of the constant threat from Russia and uncertainty regarding U.S. support.
I believe that Europe has weak points in European security. This isn't just about one country. It's a broader issue. All these weak points were in Ukraine. Because of the war, we have done a lot. We increased production and strengthened the army. We have an army of 800,000. Yes, we did this because of the tragedy. Europeans need to raise and invest resources in the defense capabilities of their countries because they have to rely on themselves.
Volodymyr Zelensky proposed a unifying platform for Ukraine as the first step towards a united army of Europe and European armed forces. He called it not an experiment, but an important security pilot.
And this contingent could be in Ukraine. We will all work together. There will be developments. We will introduce each other to technologies, drones. We will teach whoever needs it about ground warfare and how to deal with a modern, very technological enemy, and so on. All of this will be useful for security. This is peace for everyone. I think that today we are a real example. I believe that today there is a genuine desire to provide Ukraine with security guarantees and to end the active phase of the war. And from this example, we can build these armed forces, even if there isn't a new legal model. But this can be built on the basis of the contingent.
European Commissioner for Defense Andrius Kubilius stated at a joint meeting of the European Commission and the Ukrainian government in Kyiv on February 24th that today in Europe, the common goal is peace for Ukraine through strength. Joint forces, joint forces.
What can we do? First of all, increase support for the Ukrainian defense industry. Second, create a joint Ukrainian-European working group on Ukraine's procurement needs. Third, increase procurement opportunities from the EU for the Ukrainian defense industry in support of Ukraine.
The fourth point mentioned by the European Commissioner was the use of existing EU defense industrial programs for the benefit of Ukraine. Czech Prime Minister Petr Fiala stated that Europe must take care of its own defense. In his special speech dedicated to the third anniversary of the war between Russia and Ukraine,
we must fundamentally increase defense spending to 3% over the next few years. The international order is undergoing the biggest changes since the fall of communism. This doesn't mean that the US is no longer an ally. Petr Fiala, the Prime Minister of the Czech Republic, in a special speech dedicated to the third anniversary of the war between Russia and Ukraine.
At the same time, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is convinced that today NATO is the simplest and most reliable way to guarantee peace. And peace for both Ukraine and Europe as a whole. However, if membership in the alliance is closed for Ukraine, there will be no other option but to build NATO in Ukraine.
That's all for today, but you can catch more news in the next episode. Hotspot.